There are few movies in history that can truly be called one of a kind. But the Rocky Horror Picture Show, that's something else entirely. A bizarre mix of rock and roll, sci-fi parody, and sexual liberation, this 1975 film somehow went from being a complete box office disaster to one of the most beloved cult classics ever made. How did a movie that everyone ignored suddenly become the longest running theatrical release in history? Let's jump into the strange, wild, and utterly unique history of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
The earth stood still, but he told us.
Our story starts in 1973 on a small London stage. A young actor and writer named Richard O'Brien had an idea for a musical that combined his love of 1950s B-movies, horror flicks, and glam rock. The result was the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a stage production that took audiences by storm with its campy energy and outrageous characters. At the center of it all was Dr. Frankenfurter, a self-proclaimed sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania, played by the one and only Tim Curry. The stage show became a sensation in London with its bold mix of sexuality and satire, and soon Hollywood came calling. Producer Lou Adler, known for his work with Carole King and the Mamas and the Papas, decided to bring the show to the big screen, hiring Jim Sharman to direct and retaining most of the original cast. Filming took place in a decrepit English mansion called Oakley Court, where the cast endured freezing temperatures and long nights. When the film finally hit theaters in August of 1975, expectations were high, but the reaction was disastrous.
The river was deep, but I swam it. Janet, the future is ours.
Upon its initial release, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was panned by critics and ignored by audiences. It was too weird, too sexual, and simply too ahead of its time. 20th Century Fox had no idea how to market a movie that defied categorization. It wasn't quite horror, it wasn't quite comedy, it wasn't a typical musical. It was an explosion of glam, camp, and chaos that mainstream audiences in 1975 weren't ready for. After a short theatrical run, the movie disappeared almost entirely. For most films, that would have been the end of the story, but for Rocky Horror, the real story was only beginning.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting.
In 1976, a year after its failed release, something unexpected started happening. A few independent theaters in the U.S., most notably the Waverly Theater in New York City, began screening the Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight. At first, the showings drew only a small group of curious moviegoers, but slowly, a strange phenomenon began to take shape. Fans started showing up in costume, they shouted back lines at the screen, sang along to the songs, and even mimicked the actions of the characters. Before long, audiences were bringing props, rice for the wedding scene, squirt guns for the rainstorm, and toast for the dinner table. People weren't just watching a movie anymore, they were participating in it. It became an interactive experience, half film and half live performance, and soon midnight showings were popping up all over the U.S. The movie that had bombed in the theaters had now found a new life as a cultural event unlike anything before.
Do I see you've met my faithful?
So why did the Rocky Horror Picture Show connect so deeply with people, especially those who felt they didn't fit in anywhere else? Because Rocky Horror wasn't just a movie, it was a celebration of being different. It broke every rule, challenged every norm, and told its audiences, don't dream it, be it. At a time when society was still conservative in its attitudes towards gender and sexuality, Rocky Horror was unapologetically bold, embracing fluid identities and personal freedom. For many, it was the first time they saw characters who were flamboyant, fearless, and proud of who they were. Midnight screenings became a safe space for outsiders, a place where you could show up in fishnets, sing along, and be your true self without judgment. And because every screening was unique, filled with audience callbacks, jokes, and wild energy, it created a community. It wasn't just a movie anymore, it was a movement.
To Saturday night, when you're at the job and you
Of course, the Rocky Horror Picture Show wouldn't be what it is without its music. The soundtrack is pure rock and roll theater, catchy, outrageous, and dripping with attitude. Songs like Time Warp, Sweet Transvestite, and Science Fiction Double Feature have become iconic anthems, instantly recognizable to anyone who's ever been to a screening. Tim Curry's performance as Dr. Frankenfurter is nothing short of legendary. Equal parts Mick Jagger swagger, David Bowie glam, and pure chaos. He wasn't just playing a role, he was defining one with the most unforgettable characters in pop culture history. The movie's visual style, a mix of gothic horror, 1950s sci-fi, and glittery glam rock, was just as groundbreaking. Over the decades, Rocky Horror has influenced musicians, artists, and filmmakers alike, from Marilyn Manson to Lady Gaga. Its fearless theatrical spirit continues to echo throughout popular culture.
The earth stood still, but he told us.
Here's the crazy part. Nearly 50 years later, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is still playing in theaters around the world. No other film in history can make that claim. Since 1976, it's been screened somewhere every single week. Generations of fans have discovered it through these midnight showings, keeping the tradition alive. And that's part of what makes Rocky Horror so special. It's not just nostalgia, it's a living ritual. When you attend a screening, you're stepping into something that's been going on for decades. You sing, you dance, you shout, and you laugh with a room full of strangers who instantly feel like friends. In a world dominated by streaming and isolation, Rocky Horror remains one of the last true communal movie experiences, something alive, unpredictable, and full of joy.
The river was deep, but I swam it. Janet, the future is ours.
So why is the Rocky Horror Picture Show still loved today? Because its message is timeless. It celebrates individuality, creativity, and freedom in a way few films ever have. It tells us the audience that it's okay to be different, and in fact, that's what makes life exciting. It's a mix of camp, chaos, and confidence. It continues to resonate with anyone who's ever felt out of place. Whether you're watching for the first time or the 100th, the movie's strange charm still feels fresh and rebellious. Rocky Horror invites you in, hands you some rice and a water gun, and says, "Welcome to the party. Let's do the time warp again."
It's astounding. Time is fleeting.
Nearly 5 decades later, the Rocky Horror Picture Show stands as a monument to freedom, creativity, and rock and roll weirdness. It started as a flop. It became a phenomenon that brings people together every weekend around the world. It's more than a film, it's a movement. It's one that shows no signs of slowing down. So with that being said, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Rocky Horror Picture Show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, check out my other videos on rock and film history. And remember, don't dream it, be it.